Well, hello folks. Welcome to another episode of Whiskey Calling here. We're hanging out in the garage today. Tonight, you're just sort of having a dram or two. And I thought I'd shoot one out here for fun, you know. Summer's kind of slowly on the way. It's actually warm enough in the garage now to kind of hang out. So that's kind of a fun thing for sure. So, yeah, it's a nice middle of the week right now. Tuesday night. We're just hanging out, relaxing. I thought, you know what? I'm going to try a couple of bourbons tonight for you folks. Hope you've got one out too. Maybe a bourbon tonight of your choice. Tonight, kind of the feature bourbon I'm going to look at is Oppidan. Here it is. This one is, so far, I'm finding it's a bit of a crowd pleaser. It's smooth. It's simple. Not simple in a bad way. Simple in a good way. It's passed it around to guests, and boy, people seem to like this. So it's 46% alcohol. It's bourbon whiskey finished in French oak and Oloroso sherry casks. Always have trouble with that word, Oloroso. Let's see what else it says here about this. It says Oppidan, a Solera aged bourbon, continues our philosophy of controlled experimentation. A 5-grain bourbon reinvented with an aging process that includes traditional American oak, French oak, and Spanish Oloroso sherry cask. Getting a little bit better at that. A complex and unique take on an American tradition. So, so it's really interesting. This really seemed to, please guests, as I said. So, hey, I'm going to pour one right now. Hope you got one out with you as well. Enjoying yourself. Oh yeah. Smells great. Yeah, and I'm gonna compare this today to another bourbon afterwards. Kind of just more of a compare contrast kind of thing. Another bourbon I like as well. Oh yeah, that seems like about right. Yeah, I hope you've got something out yourself. If you've got one of these, sip it with me and see if you agree on the tasting notes and the palate and whatnot. So yeah, let's give this a smell. Yeah, so right away, just sort of that rich, sweet, classic bourbon nose. Kind of a brown sugar, maybe cinnamon bun kind of. Maybe a little bit of vanilla smell to it. A little bit of alcohol. You smell a little bit of alcohol there as well, in a good way. Let's see what it tastes like. Yeah, just a nice bit of uptake burn there. You kind of there's a bit of spice, almost maybe a pepper or cinnamon spice or a combination of those. Kind of along with kind of a of course a little bit of that sweetness, that classic bourbon sweetness as well. Yeah, and you smell it again. It's really got some nice alcohol push to it. I feel like, actually, for 46%, it almost tastes and feels a little bit more alcohol forward than you might expect for that, in a good way. Yeah, I'm actually getting quite a rich kind of mid taste, a real nice push, kind of a heady, alcohol forward push. With kind of the sweetness. I can taste some of that vanilla now as I'm talking. And I'm just thinking now the sherry cask side of it. I'm not tasting tons of that, to be honest. French oak and Spanish Oloroso sherry. Okay. So, yeah, it doesn't feel heavy on the kind of that kind of sherry finishing necessarily. Getting more of a brown sugar kind of sweet kind of element to it, but still very, again, don't want to overuse the word smooth or something, but kind of just a nice smooth, but enough complexity in the middle that it makes it interesting. And it's flavorful. It's a nice flavor, for lack of a better term. It's actually got a little bit more of that push than I remember. I remember trying this, obviously, kind of working the bottle pretty good. And I kind of remember it being a little bit more, a little bit less eventful, a little bit, as you'd sip it, very nice to drink, but a little less eventful. And I'm finding it's got that little extra push right now, which is really nice, actually. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of just contrast this here. I'm gonna kind of clean my palate out here. Boy, I hope you have one of these yourself, or a dram yourself. You're joined tonight. What else are you gonna do on a Tuesday night? Might as well enjoy. Okay, so let's try this guy. So this one here, it's Wyoming whiskey. Give you a good look at that. This is a nice bourbon, small batch bourbon whiskey, distilled, barreled, and bottled in Kirby, Wyoming. It says here, the bourbon frontier has moved west to the Rocky Mountains of Wyoming, where high country winds flow through fields of wheat, corn, and barley, where water from glaciers waits in deep limestone aquifers, and where this whiskey is made by hand without shortcuts or compromise to create a small batch bourbon with the right to be called Wyoming's whiskey. So, yeah, it's 44% alcohol, 88 proof. And I kind of wanted to compare it to this bourbon, because this bourbon it's a little bit rougher, if I recall correctly. Worked down into this. By rougher, I just mean a bit more of experience. I was talking before about the experience halfway through the sip. This one's got if I recall, it's got a real, it's funny, a real Rocky Mountain push, if you will. It tastes like you're sitting in the Rockies, and it's just got that kind of rough edge to it in a really good way. So I really do like this one. I'm going to see just how eventful it tastes compared to the Oppidan here, and be interesting. And then we'll go back to the Oppidan and see, hey, what is the difference? I'll give this a smell first here. Funny, the nose is really muted compared to the Oppidan, I would say. It's almost like I get maybe a little bit of light vanilla, or almost a little bit of a vinegar almost smell to it. Not in a bad way, but just, very mild. But yeah, it's interesting. Much less sweet. You don't smell near as much of the sweetness as the Oppidan. That's for sure. That's interesting. Okay, well let's see what the palate's like. Oh yeah. It's funny. The palate's a bit more muted. The palate isn't. Boy, yeah, it's got that about halfway through the sip. You just get this crazy kind of, it's Wyoming, Rocky Mountains, or I don't know if Rocky Mountains, but kind of that country, cowboy ranching kind of feel. It feels like you're on a bronco being bucked around or something. Right halfway through, it's just boom, boom. You just feel like, where's this going? You don't really know. And that's a really nice surprise. And it keeps this really, really interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's just sort of this, first half of the sip kind of starts slow, and then there's just sort of this spicy uptake. Or almost maybe a vanilla or something, and then all of a sudden just takes off into this kind of hot spice really quickly, And then it kind of has a nice kind of slow come down on the finish. Almost maybe a bit of a dry, finish almost. Again, not in a bad, in a nice way. But I would say much less sweet. That's one thing I'm coming across too. It doesn't have that stereotypical kind of rich, many bourbons have that kind of brown sugary cinnamon, a little bit of touch of vanilla, kind of baking spice, kind of you feel like you're in a kitchen, in a really great way, kitchen or a bakery, This doesn't have near as much of the sweetness, but it's got a little more spice, and it's got that real good bucking adventure in the middle, So this is really nice. Yeah, it's nice. But again, every time you take a sip, and this is one thing I love about Wyoming whiskey, every time you take a sip, it takes you out of your chair just a little bit. You can never quite relax with it, it's really a compliment. Like many times you want to have a whiskey to relax and kind of settle into it, of course. But the Wyoming whiskey, you'll be able to do that, but it kind of is never a boring ride. That's what I find with the Wyoming. Yeah, I'm going to cleanse my palate here. I'm going to go back to the Oppidan and see, hey, what's that contrast like come back the other side? Yeah, right away. You smell it, much sweeter, much sweeter. That rich kind of brown sugar, getting that right back again. Oh. Whoa. Sweeter, a little less spicy, a little less hot, but still a really nice element of that. It's certainly not boring. Smooth but not boring. I think that's might be how I would define Oppidan. Really, really easy to drink. I mean, this thing, we opened this thing up and look at that. It just sort of disappeared real quick. I think I bought this 4 weeks ago, and it just really moved. I've had this for quite a bit longer, but this is something that's looked on the shelf and like, oh boy, I almost want to save it because I don't want it to go away too quick. So really nice surprise Oppidan. I hadn't heard much of it before I bought it. I think I'd seen it once or twice around, but then saw it on the shelf a little while ago. Really kind of cool looking bottle too. I like the look of this bottle, I like the style of it. Really, really nice put together bourbon here. Really, really nice. Anyways, folks, I don't take up too much more of your time. Thanks for joining me. Hope you had a dram or two yourself. Haven't put out a video in a while. Thought, hey, I better get one out there, and probably put a few more out here in quick succession, hopefully, and get kind of back into the groove. So, anyways, folks, have a great night, everybody.